and one of the people who is on the Select Committee on Intelligence, which will prevent her from talking about some of the things that are confidential because of the deep intelligence knowledge that goes on in this secure room in this Capitol, is my friend from Minnesota, whom I'd like to yield to, Michele Bachmann.
Mr. Speaker, I thank you for the gentleman from Iowa for yielding, and this is a very important issue and a very important vote that we have just taken here in the House chamber. It's dealing with the Patriot Act, and we have had calls, we've had requests on our Facebook, Twitter, and on our email urging a no vote tonight on the Patriot Act. I cast a yes vote on this act. The Patriot Act did pass. This is why. This is an authorization for the next several years on 3 areas. One is on the lone wolf exception. We have a new war, a new enemy, new tactics. The lone wolf is one actor acting alone, and we get a tip. It may be at the last minute. We've got to go in for national security reasons and find that actor. That is an appropriate use of gaining this intelligence and information. Number 2, roving wiretaps. We have changed from the days of telephones being wired into the walls. Now we use a phone. A lot of moderates will buy 1,000, quote, go phones. They'll make one call, use a cell phone, throw it away like it's a disposable phone, pick up another cell phone, make another call. So we have to have the ability to be able to go to whichever phone a potential alleged terrorist may be using. Now, the third exception is the business records exception. This is Section 215. This is the section that most people have the greatest worries about. They worry about the infringement of Fourth Amendment rights. I worry about that too. I spent all week this week going from members who I felt would oppose the Patriot Act. I went to people who are national voices who oppose the Patriot Act to find out what their concerns were, because I'm a lawyer. I genuinely am concerned about making sure that we never cross the line as a federal government. Why? Because I think government is too big. I think we intervene too much in people's lives. I certainly don't want to give the government the unfettered right to go in and access my personal private records. This is what I know to be true about Section 215 and why I could vote for it. Number 1, no right of gaining access to records can be given unless a federal agent goes to a judge first. They have to go to the FISA court. Also, there has to be a connection to national security interests or to a foreign government. We've got that level of protection. When they go and make these requests, of which there's been 300 some requests, then they can go and they can gain access to a record. Now, these are business records. These aren't records in my basement or your basement. These are records that a company has, like a phone company or a bank. But they're used in only the limited case where a judge first grants permission. So what does that mean? That means that it is constitutional in that the individual Americans' due process rights are observed, because a federal agent first has to go to a judge has to apply due process to that request, and then from there, then access can be given to records, not in an individual's house, but from a business. And then during the course of investigation, again, remembering this is if there is a threat of a national security incident only, then during the course of an investigation, it's well understood. If we're investigating a terrorist, if we get a lead that Khalid Sheikh Mohammed has a phone, we get his information, we are able to access records that are somehow connected to an alleged terrorist, or now an admitted terrorist, Khalid Sheikh Mohammed, we have to be able to have the means. Do we tip off someone like a Khalid Sheikh Mohammed that we're looking at his records? Of course not. That would be absurd. So because it's a very different time and a different war, and because we're observing Fourth Amendment rights. Now, Khalid Sheikh Mohammed is not an American. He is not an American citizen. He is not an American. But for Americans, when we are seeking a request for a record of an American, the federal agent first has to go and get this approved by a judge. I urge people, Mr. Speaker, go to my Facebook site. We have all of the documents up to verify and show all of the reasoning behind the Patriot Act. And again, this is a very important discussion this evening. I want to thank my colleague Steve King for bringing this to people's attention. It's a very important vote. I've spent all week trying the basis for whether the vote should be yes or the vote should be no. And I have confidence this evening that it was the right vote to cast a yes vote. And again, I encourage anyone who's interested to go to my Facebook site and get all that documentation. Read for yourselves, make up your mind. But in my opinion, this passes constitutional muster. And I can assure every American I would not vote for this bill unless I thought it did pass constitutional muster, and I yield back.
And reclaiming my time and thanking the gentlelady from Minnesota for coming to the floor on short notice to add clarity to this discussion and this debate, and having the courage to stand up on these constitutional